Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome back to Mindsprout Books, the channel where we explore holistic self-development through the wisdom of books. Have you ever had a childhood experience like this? As a child, you felt like a lonely planet in your own home, inhabited only by you and two giants. These giants were emotionally unpredictable. Some days, for reasons you couldn't understand, they would become upset and suddenly erupt in anger. At that moment, you had no idea how to communicate with them and felt completely helpless. Gradually, the once carefree and innocent child in you started to become more cautious, constantly monitoring their gazes, emotions, and words. As you grew a little older, every decision you wanted to make had to get the final stamp of approval from your parents. Somewhere, you might still hear echoes of your own helpless frustrations in stories like these. My father forced me to change my university application. Or, my mother was determined to break me and my boyfriend up just because she didn't like him. What to wear, what to eat, which school to choose, where to work, whom to love, whom to marry. So many children in our society can only follow their parents' commands throughout their entire journey to adulthood. This life is often trailed by a shadow of resentment, frustration, anger, and suffocation. If this sounds familiar, it's very likely that your parents are emotionally immature and you are living under their control. Some say that childhood is just childhood, and things will be different when you grow up. They believe that once you reach adulthood, get a job, start a family, and live on your own, you'll be free from your parents' control. But in reality, even if you are in your 50s or 60s, or have a successful career, if you still don't understand your own inner world and don't know how to recognize if your parents are emotionally immature, the wounds within you will never heal. Their control can follow you persistently for the rest of your life. It can lead to trouble in your relationships, difficulty expressing your feelings, and even an inability to recognize your own true needs. And if you inherit all of this from them, your children will, in turn, have to live with an emotionally immature parent. It's a never-ending cycle. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, in her renowned psychology book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, provides practical tools to protect yourself when interacting with such parents, to reclaim your emotional autonomy, and to heal both yourself and your inner child. With her full experience as a clinical psychologist, the author can help you step out from the shadows of your childhood, move forward with strength, and understand that while we cannot change the family we were born into, we can choose how we live our lives. What your family of origin couldn't give you, you have the power to give yourself. Now let's dive into today's topic. The first question to help us take a step toward understanding our inner selves is, what does it usually feel like to live with emotionally immature parents? The first feeling, which almost everyone has surely experienced, is loneliness. The loneliness of living with emotionally immature parents can be so profound that it feels like having parents is the same as having none at all. Along with loneliness comes a sense of helplessness. This helplessness stems from their way of communicating through moods. What does that mean? It's how they convey their unpredictable emotions to you. For instance, your mother comes home from work with a stony face, saying nothing. You ask, "Mom, is something wrong?" But she remains silent. Her silence is a form of emotional communication. Though wordless, it sends a clear signal to her child. You need to guess why I'm unhappy. The unpredictable behavior of emotionally immature parents is really no different from a child's game. They resolve issues by projecting their emotions, creating a fearful atmosphere that makes even their own home feel suffocating. After helplessness comes pressure. You constantly feel forced and cornered. The great Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy once said, "Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." According to one study, unhappy families share a common trait. If there's just one member with a coercive personality, someone who always demands others do things their way, then the family members are certain to experience a great deal of suffering and internal damage. A fourth characteristic is feeling secondary, meaning your parents always put themselves first and disregard your true feelings. For example, if you fail an exam, their first worry is that they will lose face. Next, you feel a sense of distance from your parents. They don't want emotional or heartfelt closeness and are unwilling to truly open up to you. You also feel disrespected. This often happens when your parents disregard your personal boundaries and individuality, for instance, by reading your diary, monitoring you, or trying to interfere with and change your choices. Finally, after all these painful emotions, you want to live differently. You've tried countless times to express yourself to your parents, hoping to communicate and make them understand your true feelings. However, every attempt is met with a one-sided, fruitless interaction. Or you may have feelings of unhappiness or discomfort when forced to do something, or sadness when your parents behave unreasonably, but you're not allowed to speak up. The moment you do, you're immediately scolded or ignored. As a result, a sense of disappointment constantly fills you, and you gradually stop wanting to express your true self. These are the common feelings when interacting with emotionally immature parents. If you live with one or more of these feelings for a long time, the ultimate result is that you are unconsciously controlled by your parents and lose your emotional autonomy. But why do you get controlled? How do they control you? Theoretically, when family conflicts arise, the adults should take the lead in taking responsibility, as they are more mature and need to maintain a healthy family atmosphere. But in reality, in the home of emotionally immature parents, it is the children who must play the role of the adult, taking responsibility for reconciliation. However, as a small child, your only way to reconcile is to obey, listen, and please your parents. Or, when conflict occurs, you have to be the first to apologize and make amends before the tension can ease. In this way, children gradually lose their emotional autonomy and mental freedom. We need to understand that the tool of control here is emotion itself. Emotion is a double-edged sword. If the emotion is joy, you see it as a gift, a special favor for which you are very grateful. But if it's pain, you feel as if you are being punished, as if you've lost something. The negative emotions you experience when interacting with immature parents repeat constantly from a young age. This makes you extremely sensitive and prone to strong emotional reactions. A single harsh word or an unreasonable action from them can cause you to overthink, feel fear, anxiety, or deep sadness for a long time. The more you are affected by your emotions, the more your parents can use them as a tool to control you and demand you do as they wish. If you don't comply, you feel guilty and ashamed. But when you do everything to please them, you start to realize you are no longer being yourself. From there, your life may face many setbacks. You'll struggle to manage your own emotions, and when you start your own family, you may be disappointed by your partner. This is the consequence of being controlled. So, why is it important to understand all this? So that we can delve deeper into the inner world of emotionally immature parents, understand who they are, and why they became this way. In reality, many parents are mature in age, but not in emotion. Outwardly, they may appear mature, handle their work well, and have no issues communicating with others. They might even be very successful and hold high positions in society, but at home, they remain giant children. Based on research and practical clinical experience, the author has categorized 4 types of people who are considered emotionally immature parents. The first type is the emotional parent. These are people who often lose control of their emotions. They are very sensitive and overreact to everything. In a short span of time, their attitude can shift from deeply caring to extremely cold. One moment, they are happy. The next, they are furious. This emotional volatility makes them unpredictable and creates immense pressure within the family. They are also easily triggered, and when that happens, the entire family has to rush to console them. The second type is the driven parent. These parents are proactive and ambitious. On the surface, they may seem normal because they are always trying to care for and invest in their children. However, their excessive involvement in their children's lives actually leads to a lack of empathy. These parents often force their children to behave in ways they deem most appropriate. They tend to be authoritarian, interfering in all aspects of their children's lives, setting high expectations, and can be very strict and demanding. Driven parents are also often busy pursuing their own needs. They will do whatever it takes to raise exceptional and successful children. As a result, they often feel frustrated and exhausted, both physically and mentally. These parents don't care if their child is genuinely happy or interested in something. They measure everything by goals. For example, what achievements has the child made? How many hours must they study a day? How many advanced classes must they attend, etc. In truth, for a parent to always talk to their child in terms of goals is incredibly cruel. Just imagine if you came home from work and your child asked you, "What's your KPI this month, Dad? What's your rank at the company, Mom? How much is your year-end bonus?" You probably wouldn't feel like coming home at all. Yet strangely, many parents treat their children by these very standards. The third type is the passive parent. This type of parent avoids all forms of conflict and tension. While this might make them easy to live with, it also means they always make their children feel distant. They are unwilling to have honest conversations with their children, don't initiate talks about feelings or share emotions, and won't stand up for themselves or their children when needed. Finally, there is the rejecting parent. These are parents who crave to be alone. They spend very little time with their children. Their interactions with the family are often limited to serious or critical matters. They are impatient and uninterested in the needs of others. They mostly communicate with their children through commands, anger, or withdrawal. Children of such parents often feel uncomfortable and believe they are unimportant to their parents. I wonder how many of you listening have grown up in such circumstances. Perhaps your eyes have welled up with tears many times. Or maybe you've become so accustomed to the pain that it has become a scar. Or perhaps you yourself are now unaware of whether you are truly mature in raising your own children. Today, our goal in learning about parental immaturity isn't to blame one another, but simply to better understand the inner worlds of our parents and ourselves. That after looking at these 4 types, let's continue to explore the root causes of why so many parents live to be 40, or even into their 60s and 70s, yet fail to mature. Research shows that a child gradually matures when they receive genuine care and love from their parents. However, emotionally immature parents have passed that stage. In reality, they are still children themselves, craving that same attention. So, the key reason here is that history repeats itself. Emotionally immature parents often had emotionally immature parents themselves. As children, they were also hurt and emotionally deprived. Their strongest emotions may have been suppressed. They couldn't explore or express their thoughts and feelings to develop healthy emotional lives, which limited their ability to self-regulate and connect emotionally with others as adults. In truth, however rigid these giant children in your house may seem on the outside, they are incredibly vulnerable on the inside. Because they have gone so long without receiving care or healing, they have had to build a psychological defensive wall. This wall protects them from feelings of insecurity. It is precisely this lack of security that makes them want to dominate and control others. This cause leads them to have certain internal characteristics, such as, if others don't put me first, I feel like I'll fall apart. This is the first inner voice of an immature parent. Young children are naturally egocentric. Immature adults never truly outgrow this childish instinct. They always see themselves as the center of the universe, so it's best if their children obey, comply, and give positive feedback. Only then will their emotions stabilize. To achieve this, they will be extremely strict. To prevent their defensive wall from being torn down, they must set boundaries by clearly distinguishing roles. You might notice people who came from poverty, worked hard to get ahead, and then, when they become well off and hire domestic help, they treat them very strictly, with a clear superior-inferior distinction. Why is that? Because they think, I'm paying them, so I have the right. This is defining people by their roles. Similarly, if parents define family members by different roles, what responsibilities a child has, how the eldest brother or sister should be, what the youngest must do, each role creates undercurrents that make everyone in the family feel a sense of unfairness and distance. At the other extreme, some parents protect their defensive wall in the opposite way of strictness, with indifference. These individuals are sensitive, unable to control their emotions, or afraid to express affection. Both extremes can make them susceptible to psychological issues like depression, narcissistic personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and more. Next, after prioritizing themselves, their next inner motto is naturally, I am always right. Emotionally immature parents lack the capacity for self-reflection. They cannot admit they are wrong. Because to them, admitting fault means their defensive wall will collapse, so they simply cannot be wrong. These parents are like children with a distorted view of the world. Once they form an opinion, they cannot change their minds. They can become extremely defensive when challenged. A person without self-reflection also cannot handle external pressure. They must immediately release it as soon as they get home, so they become easily irritable with family members. Notably, for highly educated people who are emotionally immature, their walls are even thicker and higher. The author says that a person's intellect may not extend to their emotional world. This means someone can be excellent at their job, solving all external problems perfectly, but their inner emotional world is empty. Such people find it even harder to practice self-reflection in their parenting. These are the deep-rooted causes and internal characteristics of the 4 types of emotionally immature parents. So now, faced with this rigid fortress, what can their children do to heal and save themselves? The author points out that to free yourself from the control of emotionally immature parents, the core strategy is to establish boundaries. Many people mistakenly believe that setting boundaries to avoid getting hurt means cutting off all emotional sensitivity toward their parents. For example, if their parents yell and scold, they think it's fine. To protect myself, I'll just close off my heart and numb my feelings. Or, some people leave home, live alone, and ignore their parents completely. This kind of emotional numbness, if it stays with you for years without healing, will cause problems in expressing emotions to others. You will also sever the emotional connection with your own children, and the cycle of suffering will continue. Setting boundaries isn't about isolating yourself from your inner world, nor is it about running away from conflict. It's about being able to stand at a safe distance to directly face and clearly see the problem, and then handle it better. This is the very first step in setting boundaries. Children who grow up with immature parents often live with resentment and feel unloved, asking, "Why do my parents treat me this way?" But now, with the awareness to set boundaries, you will understand that it turns out your parents are also incapable of expressing love, very likely because they too are emotionally immature. Now you understand why they are the way they are, and you know that it has nothing to do with you. You did nothing wrong. Recognizing the problem and immediately stopping the internal war that wears you down is the first crucial step. Next, you need to stop paying so much attention to your parents' immature behaviors. For example, your father gets angry and smashes a bowl in front of you. If you haven't escaped his shadow, you will surely be startled, your whole body tensing up. At this point, some might apologize and submit, while others might confront him by arguing back or leaving immediately. Both reactions show that you are still too focused on his immature behavior. The best approach is to pause for a moment, quietly clean up the mess, and then return to speak with your father calmly. Honestly, this is easier said than done because your body's reaction doesn't lie. You'll be startled, suddenly fall into a state of anxiety, and then lose control. Therefore, you need to give yourself many opportunities to practice and adapt gradually, eventually learning to face everything with a smile. A third incredibly important tool for building boundaries is learning to say no to the unreasonable demands of immature parents. Living under the coercion and demands of immature parents, the hardest thing for you is always to say no. You find it hard to say this word because you're afraid that if you refuse, you'll feel guilty. You're afraid of their anger, their criticism, their punishment. You're afraid of the unforeseen consequences, and so on. Notice the word afraid repeated here because it is a deep-seated obsession within you. But now, you need to face it directly. If you are constantly afraid, it means you don't truly want to mature yourself. Once you feel fear, you will continue to be trapped in the cycle of control. So, to refuse rationally, you need to train yourself in critical thinking. In many books, I constantly emphasize critical thinking. Believe that critical thinking is a vital tool in your life. We often talk about the fear of being brainwashed, but being brainwashed by others is not as dangerous as brainwashing yourself. For example, your parents demand you pay off all their debts, while your own life is extremely difficult. If you don't use critical thinking to interact, you'll believe that as a child, it's your natural duty to pay off your parents' debts. But thinking one-sidedly like that is self-brainwashing. In this case, if you actively choose not to be afraid of them and use critical thinking to solve the problem, you will learn to ask yourself, beyond what they tell you, what is the truth? Is there any evidence to verify if these things are true or false? Then, you must assess how serious the crisis your parents have created really is. Is this an emergency? Is their demand on you the best solution to the problem? When they calm down, can they solve the problem themselves? Is this problem your responsibility? After self-reflecting with a series of comprehensive questions, you will surely be able to calm down and return to drawing your boundaries without being emotionally influenced by your parents. Only when you are calm can you make wise decisions and handle the issue more appropriately. Critical thinking will give you the confidence and rationality to refuse the unreasonable demands of immature parents. Perhaps at this point, you're still afraid. Is refusing and not listening to your parents the wrong thing to do? Practicing critical thinking can help you solve problems without subjectivity and bias. But when it comes to your conscience, to know if you're making the right choice, the most fundamental thing is to know what you want for yourself. Often, we let others lead us through life simply because we don't know what we want or where we want to go. So first, you must think carefully. What outcome do you want for yourself? What kind of life do you want to have? Then work towards that goal. Our pain often lies in the fact that although we don't want to listen to our parents, we also don't know what we want to do. So we drift along vaguely, sighing, "Oh well, let's just leave it like this. I'll just go along with them." Another important point. The reason you feel guilty for not obeying your parents is often because you've grown accustomed to the role of being their rescuer. Therefore, next, you need to learn to let go of this rescuer role. Research shows that sensitive children with strong empathy are more easily controlled by their parents. Often, before the parents even make a request, these children have already taken it upon themselves to be responsible for their parents' happiness and sadness, leaving themselves exhausted and miserable. Many people have confided in me that they are now married and live separately, but their old folks are always fighting, calling them home to mediate every few days. Having to worry about both sides makes them feel extremely stressed and tired. If you were in their shoes, what would you do? Many people would think, "I'm their child, of course it's my responsibility. I can't just ignore them, can I?" However, thinking this way is equivalent to allowing yourself to play the role of a rescuer. In reality, your parents are adults and need to take responsibility for their own behavior. If you interfere in their lessons, they will never be able to grow. And once you get used to the rescuer role, they will love for you to continue playing it. Initially, there wasn't much for them to get your attention, but now that you can get involved, they feel great about this newfound opportunity. Therefore, their conflicts will only increase. You need to break free from this codependent relationship and start focusing more on yourself, discovering your own values and strengths. Tell yourself that everyone has their own destiny, and your parents' lives do not need you to save them. Another useful tool is to avoid conflict and choose a more tactful approach when interacting with immature parents. As mentioned, immature parents are often self-centered and try to use emotions to coerce their children. If their children refuse to meet their demands, they become angry and irrational. So the best way, instead of refusing and confronting them directly, is to try to sidestep the issue. Sometimes a simple smile and finding another way to minimize conflict is enough. A more skillful way is to learn to empathize with their feelings. We don't have to agree with what they do, but we can empathize with how they feel. For example, you can say, "Mom, I know you're very angry with Dad," or, "I know you're really worried about me, Dad." This is about compromise and mutual care among family members. You are also showing them what mature behavior looks like, making it a very effective method. Another way is through imagination. For example, you come home and your mother suddenly gets angry and scolds you for no reason, or she constantly complains and criticizes you for everything. At this moment, you can use an imagination technique. Imagine the voice of Donald Duck quacking. You'll find that her words no longer seem so serious. Or if you can't stand it, find an excuse to go out for a walk. "I'm going for a run," or "I'm just going to take a short walk." All of these actions create space for yourself. This is also a method of self-protection, and sometimes it's necessary to bravely stop them. For instance, if you are being hit or insulted, you need to find a way to stop it. This is your right as an adult. Another important tool for breaking free from control is to actively eliminate negative self-perceptions. To easily make their children obey them, immature parents often use words of criticism, blame, or negation, such as, "If you don't listen to me, you'll only hurt yourself." "I've sacrificed my whole life for you. Why are you like this?" "He's your brother. How can you be so irresponsible as the older sister?" Don't let words like these throw you off course, and don't use them to label yourself negatively. Instead, remind yourself, "I did nothing wrong. I tried my best, and even if I stumble, it's a part of growing up." Many words of self-affirmation and self-encouragement will help you become more confident and courageous, no longer letting others define you. And as long as you allow yourself to practice these tools, bit by bit, every day, they will gradually help you draw your boundaries clearly. Only when you have your own space can you easily define yourself and live as your true self. But in the end, instead of forever struggling with the wounds from emotionally immature parents, instead of focusing on them, the best thing you can do is to shift your focus to improving yourself. Concentrate fully on activities that help you become more confident and create more value for society. But to develop yourself holistically, one essential action is to turn inward. You need to maintain a connection with your inner self and accept yourself unconditionally. Everyone makes mistakes, and you might too, but you cannot hate and reject yourself. Only by accepting yourself can you accept the outside world and others. Furthermore, you need to accept the past and look toward the future. This phrase is very important. Don't listen to this book and then go home to argue with your parents, thinking that because you know they are giant children, you can disrespect them or feel unlucky. Accepting the past means you see what happened in the past as the most logical part of your life story. Your parents did the best they could within their own level of awareness. At the very least, they gave you the chance to be alive and healthy to this day. And because you don't know what they went through or how they felt in their own childhoods, blaming and complaining will only make you more immature. You need to mature, learn to accept and understand them, to love them, and to be willing to be grateful. Accepting the past while looking toward the future means we grow together. If your parents cannot change, at least you have matured. When you mature, the sky, the air, and the sunlight that fill your life will also change. They will become warmer and brighter, radiating to those around you. Remember, when you change, your world changes. When you mature, your parents will mature too. Finally, this book lists a Bill of Rights for adult children. I find it very helpful for protecting yourself reasonably and effectively. As a grown-up child, what are your basic rights? First is the right to set boundaries. You need to consciously learn to establish your own boundaries, as suggested in this book. Second is the right not to be emotionally blackmailed. Your parents can ask you to do things, but they cannot threaten you. If you are threatened, you have the right not to listen. Third is the right to emotional autonomy and spiritual freedom. You have the right to freedom in expressing your emotions and spirit. If your parents declare your feelings wrong or your choices inferior, they are violating your autonomy. Fourth is the right to choose your relationships. You can choose who to be close with and live with, and who not to. That is your right. Fifth is the right to make the best choices for yourself. Seventh is the right to be firm in your way of life. Eighth is the right to equality and respect. Ninth is the right to prioritize your own health and happiness. Finally, the right to care for and protect yourself. These are the basic rights that adult children should have. I truly hope this book can give you more strength to find a way to overcome past traumas, to heal and reconcile with yourself, so that you can truly experience a life that you decide. A life lived with lightness and true freedom. Most importantly, I believe that stepping out of the pain of childhood and ending the unending cycle of giant children begins with you. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who need it. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch the latest videos every week. Thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video.